guys, and welcome back to the Delightful Planning YouTube channel. My name is Sydney Wooden, and I am your wedding planning coach, here to give you all of the wedding planning tips, tricks, and advice. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you are notified every time that I upload a new video. Chances are, if you're here, you're planning a wedding, and I want to help you make sure that your wedding dreams come true. So let's dive in. Today, we're going to talk about that big B word, the budget. Let's dive in and talk about ways that you can save money and stick to your budget. So, number one is set a realistic budget. You cannot dream up money. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. I wish it worked that way. If it works that way for you, let me know how you're doing it. But you can't dream up money. You only have what you have, and you don't need to spend your entire life savings on your wedding. I promise you that is not the way that you want to start your marriage. It's not worth it. Have a smaller wedding. Maybe one day you guys can renew your vows when you have more money to spend. Ask your family members who is willing and able to help you out with your wedding day. Often your parents or grandparents might be willing to help you out, but you got to set a realistic budget. So determine your overall wedding budget early in the wedding planning process. You want to do this at the very beginning. Don't start spending money and then realize, oh, we only have X amount of money and I already spent half of it. That's not going to go very well. So set a realistic budget, look at it in the very beginning of your planning process, and then you got to prioritize your expenses and make informed decisions about where to allocate your funds. Look at it from start to end at the beginning of your planning journey and make informed decisions. Don't go just willy-nilly spending things, because you're going to run out of money fast. Things cost more than you think, and there are more things that you're going to have to spend money on than you think. Number two, let's prioritize your must-haves. Identify the aspects of your wedding that are most important to you and allocate a larger portion of your budget to those elements. This will allow you to be selective in your spending while still focusing on what matters the most. Number three is choose the right venue. You might want to choose a non-traditional wedding venue, such as a park or a garden or a community center, where those places can be a lot more cost effective than a dedicated wedding venue. A dedicated wedding venue is probably going to cost a whole lot more than something that's non-traditional. Also, look for a venue that has in-house services, a venue that includes the tables, the chairs, a venue that maybe includes the food, like a restaurant, can be a very cool option, because you're definitely going to save money on those items if they're in-house rather than bringing them from out of the house. This one can be a tough one, but you got to trim that guest list. Honey, do not invite everybody you know. People you've not talked to in years don't need to be at the wedding. They don't. I'm sorry. They just don't. I promise you, you're not going to miss them the day of. Of course, invite people that you want there. Don't trim it so much that you're going to regret not inviting certain people. But the friends that you used to be very close with and you always dreamed that they're going to be at your wedding day, but the reality is that you don't talk to them anymore, they don't need to be there, because every guest is not just an additional plate of food. It's the plate of food, it's the charger, it's the silverware, it's the glassware, it's another seat at that table. Every 8 to 10 people is going to be a whole other table, which is going to require more linens, more centerpieces, more florals. It goes on and on and on. More guests mean a bigger venue space. Trim back that guest list, because it really adds up faster than you think, and it affects your overall budget more than you think. The fifth thing I want to talk about is DIY and enlist help. I kind of go back and forth on DIY projects, because if you have the money for something, I do always recommend you get professional help, because it's going to just be easier and allow you to enjoy this wedding planning process. Now, if you don't have the money, DIY is a great option. You can probably make some fantastic items and beautiful things for your wedding day on your own and save some money. So you really have to be picky about what's worth getting professional help and then what you think you can tackle on your own. If you think you can tackle it on your own and it's going to actually save money, do it. The other thing that I really like of this topic is the enlisting help. Just because it's DIY doesn't mean that you have to do it yourself. You can enlist help. Maybe that means instead of paying a professional to do something, For example, your grandma knows how to sew. Have her help you. If instead of paying a professional to do something, my aunt is really good at baking, let's say. I don't know, she used to bake. But let's say like your aunt is really good at baking. Have her help you. It's still going to cut down on costs, and these are great ways that your family can help you during this wedding planning time even if they can't afford to just straight up pay for things at the wedding. Does that make sense? Like your aunt might not be able to just give you a ton of money for the wedding, but asking her like, you want to make her a cake? If she likes baking, that's a fantastic option to A, save you money, and B, have her help. Chances are your family's going to want to help you. So that's a great option. Delegate things. You cannot do everything yourself. Again, if you can afford the professional help, go for it. But if you're really trying to save money, DIY. The other part, this is a big number 5, I guess. Make sure you're actually saving money on your DIY projects. A lot of the time, I did this myself. I was trying so hard to do something myself that I ended up spending more money than it would have just cost me to hire the professional to do it. I ended up returning as much of the materials as I could, and I hired a professional to do it. So, DIY where you can, DIY where it's not going to be a horrible headache, enlist help, but also get professional help when you can afford it and when you need it. Try to find that balance. Okay, moving on. Number 6, if I'm looking down, it's because I typed up some notes here because I can't remember all of this. But number 6 is opt for off peak dates and times. There's definitely going to be a wedding season that's on or off. Typically, it's like the spring, summer is really popular, but it's going to depend on your area. For example, I'm in Florida, so the weather's kind of nice all year round. I'm surprised that there are so many summer weddings because it's so hot. I don't quite understand that. But here in Florida, we can get away with winter weddings. The fall is very popular. Early spring is very popular. Wherever you are, let's say you're in Colorado where it's snowing. Of course, there's going to be some people who want that snowy winter wedding, but summer in Colorado is going to be popular. Fall is going to be popular because the weather's just nicer. So think about your area and then maybe do the off season. If you're in somewhere that it's super snowy and you see that the venues have more availability in December, in January, maybe pick those dates. You can be creative and figure out ways to make sure that your guests are comfortable in that off season. Just because it's an off season doesn't mean it's a bad season. The other thing to consider is typically weddings are Saturday nights. You can go for a Friday, you could go for a Sunday, you could go for a Wednesday or a Thursday if your guests are willing and able to travel for that. You can go in during a weekday, and it's going to cut down on your costs. All of your vendors are probably going to give you a little bit of a weekday discount, and a little goes a long way. The other thing you can do is the time of day. You can always do like a brunch wedding instead of a dinner and an evening wedding. It's going to save you money. And brunch foods, we've talked about this in a previous video, but brunch foods are typically going to be more cost effective than dinner food items. Speaking of food, simplify the menu and the bar. You don't have to offer everything in the world for your guests. Instead of offering a multi course plated meal, you can opt in for a buffet style or a family style catering. Now, be careful on the types of food that you pick because when you have a buffet, you have to make sure that there's enough food for everybody, including those who decide to go for seconds. So make sure that the buffet is actually going to be more cost effective than a plated meal. But the thing with a plated meal is that you need servers, where on a buffet, people typically serve themselves. So even if you're not saving money on the food, you might be saving money on the servers and the staff required for a buffet versus a plated seated meal. The other thing in this category that's going to save you money is the bar. You would be so surprised how much money a open bar and just the bar in general is going to cost you. So maybe think of other ways and be creative when it comes to the bar. You can do like, I don't love cash bars because typically guests are expecting that the drinks are going to be free, but you can do a consumption bar where you tell the bartender, hey, $500. And once you hit that $500, we're closed. You can also open and close the bar. So open it during cocktail hour, close it at the beginning of the reception while everyone's eating. I mean, give them water, but they don't need like a beer necessarily right then and there. Or they can get it at the cocktail hour and then drink it during dinner. You can open it up again during dancing and then kind of close it as the night goes on, especially if people are driving home. Although it's their responsibility to not drink and drive, this is a great way to kind of prevent it. Other cost effective things are going to be beer and wine only. Liquor is really where it comes in. And again, when you have a drink that's liquor, you then have to buy the soda and the garnishes and all the other stuff to go in it. Where if you're serving beer and wine only, you're just paying for that beer and wine. It's much cheaper than liquor. You can also do a signature cocktail, which is where you offer like one or two specialty drinks and that's it. So maybe one day I'll do a deeper dive. I'll go deeper in this topic and do a whole video just on the bar packages. But yeah, there are some ideas. So number 8, yes, number 8. I have 10. We're almost there, you guys. Number 8 is borrow or rent decorations. Rather than purchasing expensive decorations, consider borrowing or renting them from friends, from family, or from a rental company. Now, the rental company, people often might think that renting them from a rental company is going to be way more expensive than buying them. And it's not always the case. Sometimes it is the case, but it's not always the case. So, for example, for my wedding, we rented chairs, tables, linens, like we rented everything. If I were to buy those items myself, I would have had to buy them, get them to my house, store them, get them to the wedding venue, set them up myself, break them down myself, bring them home myself or my family, bring them home, and then figure out how to store them or what to do with them again. And that's not just the chairs, but that's all the glassware, the china, everything. All the little decor. If you're buying it yourself, you have to buy it, bring it home, store it, get it to the wedding venue, set it up, break it down yourself, get it home again, and then figure out what to do with it after the wedding. All of this can easily end up costing you more money than it is just to rent the items. So, check out the prices and also see if these items are things that you're ever going to use again. Another example, to play devil's advocate, an example of where I just bought something instead of renting it is I do bridal shows, wedding expos, and sometimes the booths, depending on the show, comes with a table for me, and sometimes they don't. Now, I can rent these tables, but I forget, it was a crazy, like to rent a 6-foot table, I think was like $100 for the last show. And I was like, no, that's insane. So although it would have been nice to just show up and have a table in my booth, I ended up ordering 2 tables that were like $30, $40 off Amazon. And now I have them and I can use them again and again, but I have them at my house. I'm sure that we're going to have family parties or other events in my life where I'll use these folding tables. Now, of course, I do have to store them. I did have to transport them. I have my husband who is the best transporter ever. He's great at these shows. He definitely takes up some of his weekends for me and I appreciate it. But if you don't have help, if you don't have, we have pickup trucks. If you don't have a pickup truck to lug all these things, how are you going to do it? You're going to end up renting a U-Haul or something, and it's going to cost you more money. So rent items when you can and definitely compare the prices, but don't just write off renting from professional companies to begin with, because some items are really cheaper than you might think. Now, if you can borrow items from friends, or if you go on Facebook Marketplace and you find things for super cheap, that is great as well. But things like table linens, chair covers, and decorative props honestly are more affordable when they're rented than when you buy them. Also, for linens, think about cleaning them, steaming them. If they come in a package, they're going to be all wrinkled. Who's going to set this up? Who's going to steam them and iron them? And nobody has time for that on the wedding day. So, number 9, Shop for smart attire. Look for sales, sample sales, or trunk shows when you're shopping for wedding attire. Consider a pre-owned wedding dress, or maybe there are places where you can rent a dress. That's up to you. I don't have too much experience in renting or buying a pre-owned dress, but it's an option if you want to. What I personally like a little better is honestly going for like an online dress shopping experience. You might not get that like in-person shopping experience, but there are companies, I'll try to link some below, but there are companies that you can buy your wedding dress online and you can return it, where when you go to a traditional bridal store, you're going to try on the dresses, all the sample sizes, and once you pick one, they'll order your dress and then a few months later it'll come in. If that dress doesn't fit you, you're pretty much out of luck. And those dresses are going to cost you way more than what you find online. There are some online companies that have beautiful dresses. You can order them. If they don't fit, you can return them. So you can order like 5 or 6 dresses, have your friends come over, have your mom or your sister, whatever, come to your house. You can have like a little party about it, try on the dresses for them, as if you're in the store shopping, and see what you like. And then if you don't like them, you can just send them back. But it's going to be a much cheaper option than buying a designer gown at full cost. The other thing I will say is that alterations cost so much money, so much more money than you think. I mean, depending on how much alterations you need, but don't break the bank up front when it comes to your wedding dress, because you're going to have to pay for alterations. So, of course, if you have the money, buy whatever dress you want. But if you're looking to save money, this is a great way. Order your dress online and be creative when it comes to your attire. When it comes to the groom and the groomsmen, renting suits or tuxedos are also going to be a more cost effective way than asking them to all buy their items. Going back to the wedding dresses, real quick, trunk shows and sales are a really cool option because you never know why a store is parting with certain dresses. Sometimes it's kind of like political and has nothing to do with the quality of the dress or that nobody wants the dress or anything. For example, literally yesterday, my husband and I were buying microphones for our podcast and whatever. And we were looking at he wanted some extra ones for like on the go type thing. So I was like, okay, let's just get some like cheap ones if they're going to be on the go. And so we go to the store and I was looking, and when I told the guy which one I wanted, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's great." And then he was like, "Actually, we have this other one. It comes with this pop filter and like the basket for the mic. Anyway, it comes with a bunch of other stuff. It's actually a much more expensive microphone. It was like 3 times the price. But they were parting ways with that company. And so they were giving them away for like a fourth of the price. Not giving them, selling them for like a fourth of the price. And I was asking the guy, I was like, this is a pretty good brand. Like, it's a decent microphone. Why is it on sale? And he was like, literally has nothing to do with the quality of the microphone. They're really popular microphones. Our store, like our business is just no longer doing business with that company, which now that I think about it, maybe I should have looked into why. I hope I didn't support a bad cause. But anyway, the point is, you never know what's going to happen. Just because something is on sale does not mean that it's bad quality, does not mean that nobody wants it. Sometimes they're just no longer going to carry a certain line, and you might get lucky. So check out like sample sales and trunk shows. All right, number 10. You guys finally made it. I finally made it. But if you're still here, that's awesome. Number 10 is negotiate with vendors. Don't hesitate to negotiate prices and ask for discounts from vendors. Many vendors are willing to work within your budget, especially if that means securing your business. Now, I do not want this to come across as me saying to take advantage of vendors. Vendors work so hard. Hairstylists, makeup artists, rental companies, floors, they work so hard. And I don't want this to come across as saying, and photographers, I don't want this to come across as saying that like just negotiate and ask them to cut down on their price a ton. But a lot of the time you can negotiate in their packages and what's included. For example, with my florist, I told her what I wanted. I told her my budget. She came back 3 times higher than my budget. which I kind of wish she told me that before. Like, what you're asking for is going to be way expensive. But anyway, when she came back, I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's no way." And she was like, "Okay, well, what can we do?" And we worked together to figure out what she could do within my budget. She threw in a couple extra things for me. She was very generous, and I did come up on my budget a little bit, but we were able to negotiate and figure out a way that she could still have my business, um, and I could still kind of get what I wanted. So don't be afraid to negotiate, just be very respectful and don't take advantage of people. Also, with your photographer, let's say, maybe their package is an 8-hour package or a 12-hour package, and it's too expensive, but you want that photographer. Be creative. Maybe ask them to come for less of the day, which you need to be okay if you're going to miss some of those photos. If they're coming less of the day, they're either going to miss the morning of you getting ready or they're going to miss the end of like your grand exit. So make sure that you're okay with this to begin with, but you can negotiate and say like, "Hey, how can you come to my wedding um without me spending so much money? I really like you. I like your work. I respect you. And I really want to use you. I like just don't have more money than this to spend," and see what they say. They might come back with like, "Nope, sorry, that's our price." And if that's the case, move on. It wasn't meant to be. But don't hesitate to negotiate and just ask. What's the worst they can say? No. It's worth asking. If that gives you anxiety, don't worry, it gives me anxiety too. I don't like asking for um, a discount, but I have learned that it's sometimes worth it and you have to speak up. So, there are 10 tips on saving money when it comes to your wedding. I feel like I could talk for an hour on all 10 of those. So maybe one day I'll dive deeper and revisit this. But I hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My email is sydney@delightfulplanning.com. Check out my website, delightfulplanning.com. I do offer virtual wedding planning on there and some cool packages and whatnot. So be sure to check it out. I am very excited for you in this engagement season and your wedding planning journey. And I will see you guys in the next video.